Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padam Pujanmane Savila Samaha Moha Graha Grasaika Karmani. Okay, so let's go ahead and read the verses that we covered last time. So we're going to read from verse 28. Okay. Avidyopya parokshotah swaprakasho bhavatyayam satyam jñānam anantam cheti astiha brahma lakṣaṇam satyatvam badharahityam jagadbadhaika sākṣiṇah badah kim sākṣiko brūhi natva sākṣika ishyate apaniteshu mūrteshu yamurtam shishyate viyata shakyeshu baditeshvante shishyate yattadeva tata sarvabadhena kinchicchen yanna kinchit tadeva tata bhasha evatra bhidyante nirbadham tavadastihi ata eva shrutir badhyam badhitva sheshayatyadaha sa esha neti netyatmeti atadvyavritti rupataha. Okay, so what we have seen so far is that Brahman has lakṣaṇas or indicators. And the indicators of Brahman are satyam, jñānam, and anantam. Satyam, pure existence, jñānam, pure consciousness, and anantam, pure bliss. These are the three indicators or lakṣaṇas, right? And they come from different standpoints. So when we talked about jñānam, two things were very clear. One is that it is aparoksha. Aparoksha meaning it is immediate. So consciousness cannot be perceived by direct perception or any type of inference. It is immediate. It is I. It is that I which is immediately known. And why is it immediately known? Because swaprakasha. It is self-luminous. Nothing else is needed to reveal it. It is like that light which reveals other objects but doesn't need another light to light it or to illuminate. So these two terms become very clear to us. Then when we say that same consciousness is also what we call satyam. And so last week we spent a good amount of time talking about satyam. Satyam means it's badarahityam. It is something that's non-negatable. It cannot be negated at all. And if we were to say that it could be negated, who would be the witness of that? There has to be something or someone to illumine that negation. So therefore, the self is that which cannot be negated. Now, can we give an example of how we can actually do this? It's nice to hear that the self can't be negated, but how do we actually realize this? So he gives a very beautiful example. He says, just like when there's a room full of stuff, a room full of furniture and everything, shelves, cabinet, etc., basically full of structure, full of forms. And when we remove all of these forms and structures, there is just space. There's just space. Now, the space was always there, but when we remove everything, the space becomes very evident. So the space symbolizes the Atman. In our minds, there's so much structure, so many thoughts, so many ideas. And when we remove all of these one by one, what remains is that Atman, or that pure self, which cannot be removed. Now, when it comes to a room with objects, removing is physically removing. You physically remove the objects and space becomes evident. But when it comes to Atman, the removing is a withdrawal. Basically, we withdraw from the body identification. We withdraw from the mind identification, the intellect identification, the ego identification. We withdraw from all of that, and what remains is that non-negatable Atman. So when we sit quietly with ourselves, this is something we can do. Withdraw from everything. Withdraw from the world, withdraw from perceptions, withdraw from thoughts, withdraw from our personality, withdraw from all of these different layers. And we come to a point where nothing else can be withdrawn. The self alone is. So that is one way to come to actualize it. Another way to come to actualize it is to really deeply inquire. Break down the world. Break down the objects. For example, there's a bracelet and there's a necklace, and we want to know what is it made of. Then we can go to a goldsmith, ask him to melt it, and we finally see that, the bracelet is actually gold. The necklace is actually gold. And after that visit to the goldsmith, we don't have to keep going to the goldsmith to melt gold. We know that when we see a bracelet, it's gold. And when we see a necklace, it's gold. In the same way, melt that ignorance through vichara, through deep inquiry. And through vichara or inquiry, we come to find out that the substance of the world is existence consciousness. And without this, no object can exist. And therefore, it is existence alone. So whichever way we want to do it or we can do it, we come to understand that we are that self. And he says here that when everything is negated, some people might say it's nothing. Nothing is there. And then we say, no, the self is there. People might say nothing, meaning no thing, meaning it's not an object. What remains is not an object. And sometimes we might say, but there is something, and it is the self. And all these arguments are baseless. When we negate everything, that which cannot be negated is the self. And some people might call that self no thing, not an object. Some might call the self something, meaning the subject. So either you say not an object or the subject, we're pointing out to the same essence here, but sometimes there's just a difference in language. Swami Ramatirtha gives a very beautiful story. And he tells the story of 3 young boys who were in a Gurukul. One was an English-speaking young man, the other one was Hindi-speaking, and the other one was Persian. And in the Gurukula, or in the ashram of the Guru had given them money. Let's say the Guru gave them $6, $7, or $10, let's say. And so the Guru said, now you go and get whatever you want. From the grocery, you go and get whatever you want. And so all of them were thinking, we want to get a fruit. It was a season for fruits. They love fruits. They want to get a fruit. So the English man said, I want to get a watermelon. And the Hindi speaking person said, no, I want hindwana. And the Persian speaking person said, no, I want tarbooj. And they were all arguing. And some person, very wise person, came and he knew all three languages. And he said, okay, what do you all want? And so they said, watermelon, hindwana, tarbooj. And the wise man knew that they were all referring to the same thing. They were all referring to a watermelon, just in their own language. So he bought the watermelon and he divided it into 3 pieces and he gave it to all of them. And he said, now are you happy? And they all looked at each other and they said, yeah, this is exactly what we were saying. And he said, this is what happens when you all get caught up in names. You're all referring to the same thing. Stop getting caught up in this is this name and that's that name. That doesn't matter. Well, we can sit there and name a watermelon in different languages and describe it, but who gets the joy? The one who eats the watermelon. So stop fussing about the names, the object, come to the essence of it. So any difference in words, it doesn't really matter. Then he says, it is for this that in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it talks about neti, meaning not this, not this. And it says, saha esha neti, means that Brahman is this Atman. Saha, that Brahman, is this Atman. And how do we come to know it? Neti. It's not the gross, not the subtle, not the causal. It's not an object. It's not a thing. And it is indicated this way as atad vyavritti rupataha. So rupataha, in the form of atad, what it is not. Vyavritti, negating what it is not. So that's one beautiful way that the Upanishads point out the truth is they negate what it is not. Because these objects, these things in front of us, these thoughts, all of these are so familiar to us. They're so familiar to us. And so it negates everything. And what remains is the self. So here, beautifully, he's given what is satyam, that which is non-negatable. How do I recognize it? Sit quietly and negate everything. What remains is you, that which cannot be negated. And inquire into the depth of the names and forms. What cannot be negated, that is you. That is you alone. And it doesn't matter what you call it. It is that pure self. So now we're in verse number 33, and we start from here. Idam rupam tu yadyavata, idam rupam tu yadyavata, tatyaktum shakyate akhilam, tatyaktum shakyate akhilam. Ashakyo hyanidam rupaha, ashakyo hyanidam rupaha, sa atma badhavarjitaha, sa atma badhavarjitaha, idam rupam tu yadyavata, tatyaktum shakyate khilam, ashakyo hyanidah rupaha, sa atma badhavarjitaha. So here he's again just reiterating the same idea. What is he saying? He says, idam rupam. of that which is in the form of this, idam rupam, yad yavat, whatever is in the form of this, yat, that which is, yavat, whatever which is in the form of this, idam rupam, tat tyaktum shakyate, that which you can let go of. Tat tyaktum shakyate akhilam, everything that you can let go of, let go. Ashakyaha, that which we cannot let go of, is anidam rupaha. Very beautiful term. It is of the nature of not being an object. Anidam rupaha. And that which is anidam rupaha, that which is never an object, sa atma bada varjitaha. That is atma that can never be negated. Bada varjitaha, without negation. So the entire world, severally and collectively, that can be referred to as this, can be negated. But the thing which is not this can never be negated. And this indestructible witness is the self. It's the self. So here, now, what are all of the things that we term as this or idam? So one is called, as we've seen, pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means any object of direct perception. What we can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, that is all pratyaksha, direct perception. What is paroksha? All the thoughts in the mind, those inferences, those comparisons, those calculations that we make, all of that negated. That is also idam. That's also an object of thought. So, direct object of the senses, object of the thoughts, and there's also what we call sākṣī pratyaksha, means the object of sākṣī or the witness consciousness. That which is illumined by the witness consciousness, which is ignorance. Ignorance is that, not captured by thought per se, but it is illumined by sākṣī. Like in deep sleep, when there are no more thoughts, no more objects, what remains alone is ignorance. Ignorance, right? In the same way, that anandamaya kosha, when we let go of all of the koshas, what is there is a deep silence. That's also blankness. That's only anandamaya kosha. And that is not, again, known by thought, because that's subtler than thought. That is directly illumined by sākṣī. So whatever is illumined by sākṣī, whatever is thought of in the mind, whatever is known by the senses, this whole range is called idam. Everything idam. And what to talk of the whole world? I'm just talking this way, but the whole world, all of it is idam, idam, idam. It's this, this, this. So let go whatever you can let go of. Negate, withdraw, let go, let go, let go. And one comes to a point that cannot be negated anymore. Ashakyaha anidam rupaha. Because what happens is consciousness is of the nature of not being an object. If you remember when we studied about jñānam, consciousness is not known, not because it's not ever experienced. It's ever experienced, but as the subject. So it's not known as an object. So when one comes to the subject, which is never an object, that is Atma. So come to recognize this. That subject within you, it's never an object, it's Atma. There's one beautiful story of Swāmi Tapovan Maharaj. He tells this story of a great Mahatma, yeah, that people used to come to for, is it questions or problems or situations. So it so happened that this young man went to the Mahatma and said, I want to know the self. I want to know the self. And so the Mahatma said, okay, I will tell you when everybody leaves, when no one is there, because there were a lot of people there. He said, when no one's there, I'll tell you about the self. And so people started leaving one by one, and that young man was waiting patiently, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Finally, everyone left. He was sitting in front of the Mahatma, as if with that face, now tell me, tell me. And the Mahatma said, what do you want? He said, well, you said that you would tell me about the self when no one is there. He said, but you're still there. You're still there. Meaning the ego is still there. So how can I speak? So even if no one is still there, the ego is still there. And as long as the ego is still there, the truth cannot come. It cannot come shine forth. So now he's going to conclude the topic of satyam. So we're going to see that now. Verse number 34. Siddha Brahmani Satyatvam. Siddha Brahmani Satyatvam. Jnānatvam tu pureritam. Jnānatvam tu pureritam. Swayamevanubhutitvat. Swayamevanubhutitvat. Ityadi vachanai sphotam. Ityadi vachanai sphotam. Siddha Brahmani Satyatvam. Jnānatvam tu pureritam. Swayamevanubhutitvat. Ityadi vachanai sphotam. So he said, now satyatvam. Satyatvam means existence. Existence is siddha. Existence is now established. Where? Brahmani. So that existence is established in Brahman. Meaning, existence is established as an indicator or lakṣaṇa of Brahman. Jñānatvam, the knowledge, meaning consciousness aspect, has been established in Brahman. Where? Tu purerita. Before, in the before verses. How was it established? Swayamevanubhutitvat. By saying that Brahman is of the nature of experience itself. Ityadi, etc. By these words, vachanehi, by these words, sputam, it is now very clear. So thus has been established here the eternal existence of the self, which according to the Shruti is Brahman, and its nature of pure consciousness has already been proved in 11-22 by statements like, it is awareness itself. So already we have seen first jñānam, right? So just think of the thought flow. Let's just think of the thought flow of the text so far. We started with, there is a cave in our heart, right? There's a cave that's as though covering the self. And what is this cave? The 5 sheets. And so the text then proceeds to go over and define each sheath and say why it's not Brahman. And after that, it says, the objector comes and says, well, nothing remains. After you negate all sheets, nothing remains. And then the Advaitin says, but who knows that nothing? That is the self. And therefore, the self is of the nature of consciousness. It illumines every single experience. In fact, it is of the nature of experience. Swayameva nubhutitvat. And all experience is only because of the self. Every time we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, think, it's only this pure consciousness that is enabling all of this. Without consciousness, we would not be conscious. So it is that subject. So jñānam was established. Then satyam, pure existence, was established as that which cannot be negated. So these should be clear. Now we saw that there were three indicators: satyam, jñānam. The third one is called anantam. Anantam means the infinitude of the self. It is actually infinite. It's not just pure existence, pure consciousness, but it's infinite. And so that infinitude now is going to be established in the next few verses. So if you want to see the thought flow, verses 13 to 28 speaks about jñānam. 29 to 34 speaks about satyam. And then from here to a few verses, we'll speak on anantam. So let us see now the next verse, number 35. Na vyapitvat deshatontaha, na vyapitvat deshatontaha, nityatvat napi kalataha, nityatvat napi kalataha, navastutopi sarvatmyat, navastutopi sarvatmyat, anantyam brahmani tridha, anantyam brahmani tridha, navyapitvat deshatontaha, nityatvat napi kalataha, navastutopi sarvatmyat, anantyam brahmani tridha. So it says, na deshataha antaha means it is not limited by space. Why vyapitvat? Because it is all pervading. Nityatvat na api kalataha. Na api means it neither is it limited by kala, kalataha. Why? Nityatvat, because it is eternal. Navastutaha api, and neither is it limited by object. Why? Sarvatmyat, because it is the self of everything. Anantyam brahmani tridha. Thus, Brahman is anantyam. It is infinite, tridha, in all these three respects: space, time, and object. So being all-pervasive, Brahman is not limited by space. Being eternal, it is not limited by time. And being of the nature of everything, it is not limited by any object. Thus, Brahman is infinite in all three respects. So how do we understand this verse? First, let's see the limitations that we have in the world. Already we have our limiting beliefs. I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not good for this, I'm not good for that. We already have these limitations. Here, it's talking about other limitations. So one is the limitation of space, wherein an object only occupies this much space, and that's it. So let's say this bottle is there, it only occupies this much space and no more. It doesn't occupy any other space. So this much space is its limitation. So space is greater than this bottle or this body. Let us say this body is only occupying this much space. It's limited by space. More than this, it doesn't occupy. So there's a limitation of space that is surrounding the body. There's a limitation of space that's surrounding this bottle. So that's one limitation. Then there's a limitation of time, that things only last for a certain duration. So this class is limited in time, from a certain time to a certain time. When we take up an interview or a task, it's from this time to this time. And that's why we have our calendars, a limitation in time. And there's also limitation in object, that this object is not this, and this object is not this. So this object is just limited to itself. It cannot be found in any other object. So this is the three limitations that there are. Now, when we think about space, so first let's think about space. Space seems like it's unlimited, because space also, we find that space could be all pervading. It's pervading everywhere. It seems that it's unlimited. But remember, in deep sleep, there's no conception of space. So even that is limited. It seems that time also, it keeps going and going and going and going. It seems that time is unlimited. But again, in deep sleep or in samadhi, there's no conception of time. Time and space only come when the mind comes. So when the mind comes, we have time, space, and even object. Only when the mind comes, then we have time, we have space, we have object. In fact, they all come together. Time, space, object, they all come together. Because you cannot tell time without an object. You cannot assign space without an object. And obviously, object is limited because this object is only here. It's not in this. It's limited. It has a limitation here. So these are the three limitations we see in the world. But in terms of Brahman, Brahman doesn't have any of these limitations. Why? Because space cannot limit Brahman. Time cannot limit Brahman, and object cannot limit Brahman. Because Brahman is the sarva karana. It is the cause of all. It is the cause of all. Meaning, just like we take gold, right? Gold, and we take necklace, bracelet, ring, etc. So necklace is limited because it is just in that particular form or shape. It's limited in space. It's limited in time. When it's made, it's there. When it's not made, it's not there. And it's limited in object. But gold, which is the cause of it, that pervades the necklace, the bracelet, the earring, whatever it is. Gold pervades everything. So Brahman pervades everything as the cause of this universe. It pervades every single thing. So there cannot be any limitation by space because it pervades every single thing. It is all pervading. It's all pervading. So it cannot be limited by space. Even where space doesn't go, Brahman goes. It cannot be limited by time. Same thing, because it's the cause of the entire universe. So it was there in past, present, future, and even where time cannot touch, it is there. Even the realms where time cannot touch, it is there. And it is there in every single object. Sarvatmyat means it's the essence of every object. Just like gold is the essence of bracelet, necklace, earring, it is the essence, the core of every single thing. So therefore, it is not limited by object. It's there in everything. It's the core of everything. Like gold is the core of all ornaments. So because it's all pervading, it's not limited by space. Because it's eternal, it's always there, it's not limited by time. And because it is the core of everything, the essence of everything. It is not limited by any object. It is in every object, in and through every object. In the Upanishads, it says, Ota Prota, and the warp and woof of everything is Brahman. So Brahman has no limitation whatsoever. And in fact, if you look at our nature, we also don't like to be limited. We don't like this limitation that's posed on us. If somebody says, you can only have this much space for your apartment or for your house, we're already so upset because we want more space, more space, more space. If we have limited time, we can only do something for 30 minutes and then we have to go, we feel so limited, so crunched up. And when we have limited objects, we also feel so incomplete. We want more and more and more, and we feel like by getting more and more we will be complete. But greed doesn't make one complete. Realizing that we are actually all, so why want so much? We are actually all to begin with. That will make us complete. So our whole lives we're trying to expand space, territory. So many people want to do this. Territory, expand space, make this bigger, make that bigger. And so many times we're trying to stretch time. I want to live longer. I want to be young forever. Stretch time. And we're trying to stretch objects. We're trying to get more and more and more objects. By doing all of this, that greed will never go. Only by realizing that we are actually already unlimited, infinite, that greed will vanish. Because that's our nature. That's our nature. Our nature is limitless. It is infinitude. And so when we go to places that seem infinite, we feel very happy. Do you recognize this? That when we go to an ocean and it's infinite, you can't say where the other end of the ocean is, we feel so much at peace. And when we go to a park full of trees, endless trees, we feel so happy because it's so close to infinity. So whenever we go to places that reflect our infinity, we feel so much peace because it's our nature. It's our nature. So therefore, Brahman is unlimited. And I think I have shared this with you before, but it's a good time to share it again. Swami Chinmayananda Ji always gives this description that imagine you got a pair of shoes, but they're one size too small. Everyone, I'm sure, has had that experience when you're wearing shoes one size too small. It's so painful, right? And imagine that you're going on a long hike and it's taking days and days and you're wearing that shoe. How uncomfortable would it feel? At some point, you would want to take the shoe off. We are infinity and we have put ourselves in the shoe of the body, mind, intellect. And we are going through life. And that's why we feel so uncomfortable. And that's why we feel bound. A point in time will come when it will be so painful that we will just want to take the body, mind, and intellect off. And just remain as we are. So this is what's happening. And now, something deeper here is that can we actually say that space and time and object, can we actually say that they limit Brahman or they have the ability to limit Brahman? Is it even right to say that Brahman is all-pervading? Because if we say Brahman is all-pervading, aren't we taking space into consideration? If we say that Brahman is eternal, aren't we taking time into consideration? If we say that Brahman is in every object, aren't we taking objects into consideration? Is this actually right? So, Swāmi Vidyāraṇya ji says, no. Actually, time, space, object are all superimposed in Brahman. So it's not even right to talk of Brahman as being all-pervading or eternal or the essence of every object, because all of these things are superimpositions on Brahman. Brahman actually alone is. So let's see now verse number 36. Deshakalanyavastunam Deshakalanyavastunam Kalpitatvacha Mayaya Nadeshadikritontosti Brahmanantyam sphutam tataha Deshakalanyavastunam Kalpitatvacha Mayaya Nadeshadikritontosti Brahmanantyam sphutam tataha. Desha, space, kala, time, anyavastunam, and other objects of all of these, kalpitatvat, because all of these are just kalpita, they're just projected. Kalpitatvat, there's the projection, due to the projection of space, time, and object. What is the projection? Who is it by? Mayaya. It's a projection of Maya. Nadeshadikritaha antosti means there is no creation or limitation of space, time, object in Brahman. There's no such thing. Brahma anantam sphutam tataha. Therefore, the infinite nature of Brahman is clearly revealed, or is very clear to us. So space, time, and the objects in them being illusions caused by Maya, there is no limitation of Brahman by them. Infinity of Brahman is therefore clear. So even this space, time, and object, they're just superimpositions. They're just superimpositions. They cannot even do anything to Brahman. They're like waves, and Brahman is water. So space, time, object, they are just one wave after the other. But the substratum of all of them is Brahman. And why it seems that they're there is it's a projection of Maya. It's a projection of Maya. Because of Maya, we see the wave. We see the wave, meaning we experience the world and we think that it is real. Remember, appearance, there's three levels here that we have to come to. The first level is where we experience the world and we take it as absolutely real. So wave is there. Wave is there on water. Wave is definitely there. We take it to be very real. The second is when we understand that the wave is actually just a projection on water. Wave is actually superimposed on water. So the world is just an appearance in water. The world is an appearance in Brahman. Wave is an appearance in water. World is an appearance in Brahman. But the deeper step is that wave is nothing but water. World is nothing but Brahman. So all of these time, space, objects, this entire world, they're just like waves. And waves are nothing but, in reality, water. That's all it is. Because if you remove the water, where's the wave? We remove existence, consciousness, there is no such thing as world. We remove it, there's no such thing as world. So here, what it says is, all of this is just a projection of Maya. Why is the world appearing the way it is? From our standpoint, we will say Maya. But Maya is only from the standpoint of the one who's in ignorance. But the one who truly knows will say it is just Brahman and Brahman alone. So I gave you the example of the wave. For us, it looks like a wave. For an ant, it might be a tsunami. For a child, it might be a splash, a wonder, right? So we're all looking at the same thing, but we're calling it different things. That is Maya. That we are trying to define something by our understanding. So Maya is done by us. The water doesn't, for water, everything is just water. Water is not saying that this is a wave, this is not a wave. Water is saying this is just water. But we are calling the wave different things. That is Maya. We're the ones who are doing this Maya. So we're the ones feeling these limitations, taking these limitations to be real. We're the ones doing that. In of itself, in Brahman, there is no such thing. There is no such thing, but we feel it because of Maya. So now, what is he going to say now? Now he's going to say, this is a superimposition on Maya, on Brahman. This Maya is a superimposition on Brahman, but there's also another superimposition that's there on Brahman. What is that? That is of Jiva and Ishvara. That is of the individual and of God. Those are also superimpositions on Brahman. But what that is, we will take that up next time. Okay? So what we did today is just to understand that Brahman is satyam. It is free from any negation. We can negate everything, but we can never negate the self. And Brahman is also anantam, is infinite. It cannot be limited by time, space, object. And from one level, you can say it is all-pervading, so it can't be limited in space. It is eternal, so it can't be limited in time. It is the essence of every object, so it can't be limited by objects. But really, it's not like that. Brahman is a substratum of space, time, and object. All of these are superimpositions on Brahman, just like waves are superimpositions on water. Actually, there's Brahman alone. So there's nothing really that can limit it. And you can't even define it with respect to something else, because that's all there is. Okay? So we'll say the closing prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.